Welcome to the DeFi Standard, everyone. I'm Patty XRP, and I have Mickey B. Fresh with me. And we are going to be diving into the recent announcement from Flare Network in regards to their seed funding round, where they raised $11.3 million, with it being led through Kinetic Capital. Additionally, we are going to dive more into the Federated Sidechains announcement for the XRPL, what that means for XRP, and also, how does this compare to what Flare Networks is doing? And we have a bunch of heavy hitters here in the Flare Network seed funding round. So to start it off, we were saying Kinetic Capital led the funding round with their founder, Jaehan Chu, being involved, as well as Digital Currency Group, which is the parent company of Genesis Trading and Grayscale. So a couple firms that many will be familiar with. Additionally, some other big names are LD Capital, Vinny Lingham from Civic, which is the firm that's doing KYC for Flare Finance. We also have Kwon, who is one of the people behind the Terra blockchain and the Luna coin. Additionally, Charlie Lee, the founder and creator of Litecoin, is also an investor. We have Borderless Capital from Algorand, and there were some tweets going back and forth between Flare Network, Flare Finance, and Borderless Capital about a potential governance vote after launch to bring Algorand as an F asset over to the Flare Network. And then finally, to top it off, we have Ripple, who we know had originally invested in the project. They're involved in this funding round as well. So, Mickey, what are your initial thoughts here?
So I'm very impressed grouping of VC firms that are involved in this, because these are going to be stakeholders in the ecosystem. One notable one here I think we got to talk about is Charlie Lee. So anyone who has their opinion on him from Litecoin, one thing that it does do is it brings the Litecoin community with them. It gives it credibility. So he's involved. That's why they kind of have their own pool. Algo is another one with Borderless Capital. So they're with MIT, and they came out of that project, out of the MIT digital currency project. So that's a notable one. Ripple is kind of a given, which gives more credibility to the fact that they're backing this as well, even though they didn't lead it. Now, Kinetic Capital is big in with the DeFi. And then I guess the biggest heavy hitter in here is Digital Currency Group. And that comes with, like you said, Genesis Trading, which is a market maker and liquidity provider, and then also Grayscale, which has the trust. So big funding for just a seed round. This isn't even a Series A. This is just a seed round for the Flare Limited team. Correct, Patty?
That's what it would seem like to me, since they are, the Flare network is going to be a decentralized protocol on launch. It doesn't really specify in the article from Decrypt, but that would make the most sense to me.
And I like Algo as an option to come over. So something for everyone to take a look at. We are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice, anything in this video, but we want to present all the information and all the knowledge for everyone to make the best decision. But Algo, going back and forth there, I think is an interesting conversation. And this really brings us to that governance that's going to become kind of just getting our feet wet with this Twitter voting thing. Just keep in mind, that's just to get used to it. The real governance voting when the network begins will be done within the wallets. So this is to just get everyone prepared for that. And governance and decentralization go together. So I think that's an important conversation that Patty and I are going to continue having with the community in the future as we go forward into the Flare network launch.
Absolutely. And I just want to bring attention to a few quotes from the article from Hugo. So, just to reiterate that Flare's goal is to bring additional utility to all chains and ecosystems that are integrated with it. So, starting off with Stellar, Litecoin, XRP, and Dogecoin. And then he added, the investment brings into the Flare ecosystem key participants in the investment community, together with major exchanges, market makers, blockchain founders, and entrepreneurs that have an interest in driving meaningful developments and participation on Flare. So, if you think about it, all those groups have, a lot of connections, especially since some of the individuals and firms have been around for a long time. So that can help drive development and participation in the future if, they have some kind of stake in the Flare network. And then additionally, the F asset system, which allows these tokens to be used trustlessly. That's one of the key things about F assets is they're trustless. On Flare will go live under a governance vote after the mainnet launches. He said with the governance vote expected to start from the 8th week of operation and repeat weekly until it is passed. So, I mean, I think this is probably one of the more definitive things we've seen on when the F asset system will go live. And it's looking like Hugo and his team expect it to be the 8th week of operation of the Flare network. And that's just to give time for the signal providers to work on the data that they're giving to the FTSO to get that peg between the F assets and their native assets as close to one as possible, just with very minimal basis risk in the price. And additionally, it'll help kind of just get everything up and running. People get familiar with the platform and make sure that there's going to be enough Spark collateral for the F asset system to start launching. And Mickey, I
Yes.
want to see, yeah, if you want to add in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the F asset system, everyone has to remember that it's still an application. It's a Spark.
Mm.
The F asset system is an application. So it's just a special application called a Spark dependent application. So it's not built into like the core of the Flare network. And this is why it has to be a governance vote in. So that's what the F asset system is. It's an application added to the Flare network. And this is why it's not coming at launch. So what this does give is an opportunity for us to build up Spark in the meantime. So it's going to take some time. And I think it's going to prepare everyone for the governance. We got to get the foundation to come in. So this is going to be a phased rollout. So I think we just have to understand that this is not just a one and done, we're on. So everyone can prepare. But one thing it does change here, Patty, is that it means that the Flare Finance snapshot will come prior to the F asset system launching. So that is one interesting piece of information there
Yeah,
on timeline.
absolutely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of decide to continue to launch everything because obviously we won't be able to use all of those F asset pools and stuff like that if the system's not even live yet. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. And then additionally, they kind of add in F asset contracts are easy to add. As they use almost identical smart contracts just with maybe some parameter changes. So integrating any new blockchains isn't a major overhaul or anything like that. So it should be easy to get that done once they're passed via governance proposal. And then as far as he gave a little more explanation around the Spark airdrop. So the Hugo said the distribution is taking place such that 15% of the total amount being distributed at inception is distributed day one. The remaining 85% is then opted into through a burn mechanism and is distributed on average around 3% per month over 28 months. So,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of gives you a little idea of how that's going to work. So it seems like, either we're going to have to one time opt in for all the months of the future airdrops or each month opt in when it's going to be delivered. And then
Mm-hmm.
you will have to burn some Spark like as a payment and fees to the Flare network to receive it. So we'll see how that plays out and as they give more information. But it is addressed here again after the first Dogecoin
Yes.
militia call that Hugo did, where he kind of dropped that information.
Mm-hmm. So that is important. So that means you're making a payment for that additional 85% allocation. So for all the Twitter accountants out there who are claiming that, you would have to pay a certain amount of, this is not tax advice by any means, but I think this is important and it's a concern because this answers the question and concern of many people of receiving that additional 85%. Since the first 15% are going to come at zero monetary value, you're making a payment now for the additional 85%. So then, not tax advice here, but you won't be paying income tax on the additional 85%. So that clear up everyone's concerns with that. We don't know what the fee will be, but it will be small. And once again, not tax advice or financial advice, but they're answering it. At least Hugo's giving a specific of how the inner workings are working there with the allocation.
Yeah,
I think that's important, Patty.
and to add on to that, it's like let's say you're in a jurisdiction where even with this, you're still going to be worried that you have to pay some kind of income tax. You now have the option to opt out of receiving the airdrop. So I know a lot of people, like, kind of the big freak out around it was, oh, like I automatically am being given this airdrop and now I might owe taxes on it. And what if it falls in price and I can't pay off the taxes? Well, it's very clearly saying that the remaining 85% after the initial amount is dropped at a zero value, you'll be able to opt out of that. So, at least it should cover anybody's concerns in that regard. But now I'm going to turn this over to our discussion around the XRP Ledger announcement for federated sidechains.
So I'm super excited, Patty, about these federated sidechains because this really opens up XRP's use cases to unlimited possibilities. Like literally, the sky is the limit here. And it also opens up potential new investable opportunities for us in the XRP community and also for developers now. They could build their application specific sidechains. So they build a sidechain dedicated just to that application. And that really narrows it down. So these are layer 2. So that's one thing, Patty and I want to make clear here in this video is that these side chains are layer 2. The XRP Ledger is layer 1. Flare Network is layer 1. So this is going to really expand XRP's use case. And you could see PolySign as a private sidechain. And you could see other types. Were there any other thoughts you had, Patty, on types of sidechains that we could possibly see in the future?
I mean, I just think like possibly like CBDC or some kind of digital
Mm,
dollar thing for, it doesn't have to be a big nation like the US, but it could be some smaller one that wants to enhance its domestic payment system. And it'd be pretty easy to do it over your own kind of custom designed XRP ledger that also gives you access to the mainnet and to trade cross borders through the XRP token. And that's one thing that's really important to note here is that there's no like new issuance of XRP on these side chains. It's going to have to be basically imported into the side chain. And there's a whole like multi signing process with the account that it has to go through to get there through something called the Federator. So, it's not going to be like some private XRP ledger with a private XRP price and stuff like that. It's still going to be related very much so to the original XRP ledger, like the mainnet. And then we kind of move from there into how exactly this is going to work. So we can see right here, like with what I was saying, you'd have the XRP Ledger mainnet in the middle, and then you could have these side chains that are all around it on layer 2 that are connected with basically block code called a federator that allows assets to issue in and out of these side chains, pass through the XRP ledger, possibly to another side chain. So you can see how that can add a lot of functionality, especially for private business.
yes. So this is kind of the evolution of the vision of what they had with Codius. All right. So everyone can kind of understand here. This is the evolution of that initial vision where you could configure your own sidechain in your way for your application. If it's a centralized or it can be very decentralized, but it's going to use the same XRP, like Patty said. And that's important here because it's going to give XRP many use cases. And this is what, Patty and I have been beating the drum about this. XRP is not just for one use case in just say ODL or just for central banks. It's going to have many use cases. And that's what Ripple wants and everyone wants is XRP to be used by as many entities and as a diverse group as possible. So to distribute it out so no one entity controls it all. And I think that's important. And this will bring more decentralization to the network. Hopefully it'll bring some governance. And, to me, it sounds like a lot like what Polkadot is doing, what Avalanche is doing, creating these customizable networks. These could be regulatory compliant too, Patty, here. So this is how you could comply with all regulations in a specific jurisdiction. But this is a complement, I think, to Flare. This is not necessarily competition to Flare. And there could be some composability and interoperability between these side chains and the Flare network as well, which is really interesting. And, I think there's a lot more information coming out with this. So I think we have to wait and see till we see exactly how the Federator works, how PolySign fits in here, how Flare network fits in here. But this is just amazing news. And it puts my ultimate valuation on like where XRP's price could go even higher because it just opens up the amount of use cases, and especially with tokenization and insurance and identity. It really opens all that up now to be put on these side chains. And it leaves the XRP ledger alone to be fast and a payment network like it always is. So it's not making any dramatic changes to the actual ledger's software, even though they are going to have to hard fork the software to keep everyone using the same one. But that's like a little technical, discussion that we could have in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's pretty clear here. Like to me, it was always, yeah, Ripple has been very hyper focused on payments. But when they bought RippleX, bought Logos, and Xspring started doing all those investments, you could kind of see them trying to expand their vision for what they're doing. And now very clearly the RippleX dev team with like David Schwartz and the rest of the crew put out this proposal for the XRP ledger. And it also goes to show you that like they're not implementing this. This is like their proposal for it. So everybody else, if any of the minor code changes that need to be made, they need the community to be with them on this. So I think that's important to note. And then also I kind of want to just hop in on how is this different from Flare. So these side chains, they may be composed of some smaller set of validators as opposed to like how many the XRP ledger has or the Flare network has. So like, that puts a cap on how decentralized a side chain could be. Also, the validators are forming a bridge to the side chain from the mainnet, which is XRP ledger, like the original one. And they will kind of have to be custodying assets that are flowing in and out of these side chains to the XRP ledger. And so, that brings a certain level of trust as opposed to how the F asset system is set up, where, it's completely trustless in that regard. And then I guess the last thing to touch on is that basically like Flare could be seen as like a massive universal side chain, but it's definitely its own blockchain. Like it's not using a hard fork of the XRP ledger. It's just a utility fork where they're bootstrapping off the basically like the XRP holders in community.
Yes. And yeah, this is also an expansion of the gateway model. Remember, they used to have back in the day,
Yeah.
Ripple had the gateways. So they kind of combined the gateways with Codius and made, these federated sidechains. And they're going to be different. They're going to be all different. One could be a very private blockchain for just central banks. One could be for real estate tokenization. Another one could be for DeFi. And we could be more open and public. And some are going to be closed. Some could have new governance tokens on them that maybe we can invest in, or that we could liquidity mine. I mean, the possibilities are just endless. I mean, we could probably talk about this all day on what's possible, but it's just exciting. And if you're an XRP holder, you should be excited about it. And these are the leveling up of knowledge that we're going to continuously have to do. If you're an early pioneer and an early investor and an early participator in this ecosystem, you're going to have to continually leveling up. And it does take time and it does take effort. But those who do will be heavily rewarded if the projects are successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I kind of want to just touch on a few like additional things with this. So basically what they're going to have to do to make this a reality is they have to build a new piece of software called the Federator, which is that connector between the XRP ledger and the side chains. And then they're going to have to make two trivial changes to the operation of the live XRP ledger network, as well as add new features to the XRP ledger server software that allow it to operate in a side chain so that it can kind of like read in and out of there if need be. And then additionally, with this, there's a few main advantages they state. So horizontal scaling, instead of, maybe scaling the transactions per second to be much higher, you can basically scale the network outwards and put different things that need to be done in like their own little blockchain ecosystem to, like you're saying earlier, keep the XRP ledger free for transacting value, like via payments. Additionally, low risk, there's hardly any changes. The XRP ledger itself doesn't have to change. They just need to add on a couple components. And then also it's going to be low effort. So anybody can spin one of these up that, has any kind of knowledge about XRP ledger technology. I would imagine that RippleX is going to be offering this as part of kind of like their toolkit for building on top of the XRP ledger. And then also it's a long roadmap. So, for now, until there's some other change to the XRP ledger, they add something new, people are going to be able to experiment and build new ideas on top of these side chains. And even to where if the idea is that successful, you could port that into the main chain. So it proves as like a really good real world test bed.
Yep, exactly. It's like do the testing here. We could have regulatory compliance. We could have self-sovereign digital identities, and still use the public decentralization of the XRP ledger and its decentralized exchange too, and utilize all that and still get the benefits of these sidechains. So it's like your cake and eat it. I mean, you get everything with this. I mean, it really is I think this vision has been, this isn't just something David Schwartz just decided to tweet, that he thought up in the shower yesterday. I mean, I think this is something Ripple has been working on for a long time. RippleNet is kind of based off of this in their own little way, is how it is built. I mean, they don't explain the details, but RippleNet is kind of like a side chain to the XRP ledger and private one in its way. So when people talked about private secret ledgers, we got to get over that now. There's no secret price. There's no more XRP being created. There's still the 100 billion, and the price is going to be the price. If it's on that side chain or this side chain, it doesn't matter because arbitrage will always kick in, and nobody's going to have no secret price. So we just want to quell any concerns that anyone could have on the surface with that.
Yep. And I guess just to finish up, so they some of the use cases we're talking about are definitely theoretical, but I would think if the RippleX dev team, spent this much time thinking up this idea and getting it, ready to go, that maybe Ripple has already had people that are going to start working on side chains, kind of in the pipeline. It kind of would be
Mm-hmm.
a shocker that this is like, the first time it's coming up, and then they go ahead with this whole project for the XRP ledger for it not to have utilization for when it's like ready to actually go live and start having people build on it.
Exactly. So even like there's the RippleX side, but then there's all those entities that are RippleNet partners that could build trade finance platforms, supply chains, stock exchanges. SPI could have its whole side chain itself. You know, there's so many different things that could be built here. Remember the S-Coin platform and all those things, they could be side chains. I have a question, is possibly can Hyperledger or Quorum or Corda be side chains to the XRP ledger? I don't know. These are questions maybe we'll get answers to in the future.
Yeah, and if anybody's looking for more information on this, it looks like Matt Hamilton will be hosting a RippleX Dev Twitch stream next Tuesday on this topic. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that.
Me
But
too.
yeah, it'll be see like more announcements we get, what's going on, kind of hearing more how this could play into the central bank digital currency narrative. I've seen Matt Hamilton alluding to that, in the recent past. So it'll be interesting for sure, and it just provides more flexibility and functionality for the XRP ledger, which ultimately I think will help attract more value in the long term.
Yeah. I think that's a great point that you finished off with, Patty, is that ultimately it pegs, I don't ever do price predictions. Anyone who's listens to this channel or me on Twitter, I rarely ever throw out price predictions, never really. But ultimately, this puts the value of XRP at even a higher level than it possibly could have thought of I'm not going to throw out a price prediction, so don't expect that. But I'm just saying ultimately the value that it could obtain, this is going to be something that's going to keep evolving next year, the year after, a decade from now. Because once it's implemented as like a foundational infrastructure of the next generation financial system, it will just grow out horizontally and scale these side chains. And as XRP becomes used in more use cases, it's not just about the central banks using it for ODL and CBDCs. It needs to prove itself that it can be used in all these use cases first, and then it'll be used as a bridge. Just like David Schwartz says, they'll break down those walls once they realize then you could use XRP and it has the liquidity. ODL with the remittances was to get it going. So basically, I'm saying the sky is the limit with the value, and you can't say that whatever 1,000 is not possible, because anything is possible now because the use cases are unlimited. So that's, I think, just important here. You don't have to say there is a limit, but you don't have to say that, it's definitely going to go to this amount. It's just that it's possible now, even more so than it was in the past, because the use cases have just opened up in a way that we didn't know prior.
Yeah, and I mean for all these blockchains, I really think it's hard to tell right now, like how exactly, like how high they can go as far as like value transacting over them. That's something maybe in like 2030 that we'll have a much better idea of when we see all these ideas for use cases and increasing transaction throughput in the economy and the speed of which money moves around. We don't really know exactly how those like effects will amplify one another. So just always
Mhm.
keeping an open mind here, but at least it's just steps in the right direction.
Yeah, it makes you just, think about your people with these exit strategies that you're not just invested in a digital asset, you're invested in a protocol. And that protocol is the XRP ledger. And what comes with it is these sidechains. So the what you hold in XRP as the asset, it's not just the asset, it's the values in the protocol. And Glenn Hutchins reminded us of that. And maybe it didn't make sense at the time, but now it's starting to make more and more sense to me as how the value is more than just the asset. Now these sidechains can have their own value, and who know, how they're designed. Who knows? Some could be proof of stake. Some could have their own consensus set up. It could lock up XRP and DeFi and all types of other applications that add value to it that we just didn't know was possible in the past.
Yep, and wrapping up that, that wraps up our XRPL Federated Sidechains talk. And Mickey, I know you just wanted to touch on the Ripple SEC case briefly before we finish up this episode.
Yes. So I am very excited about the Federated Sidechains. I did just want to make that clear. I am genuinely really excited about it. But going into the SEC thing now, so the fair notice defense that has been talked about is really the crux of this case right now. And before I talk about that, the SEC is refusing now to release these documents. So obviously they have something to hide. Why are you not releasing these? And now Ripple has to compel them to do this. So I think it's possible they're in the midst of serious settlement negotiations right now. The fair notice is really the crux. And I say that because what Jeremy Hogan said, if Judge Torres, I think it is, who allows the fair notice defense to apply, then the SEC is put in a position of very high risk. So if they win or lose the case, they're at risk. So even if they won the case completely, Ripple still has the ability to appeal. And if they appeal and won the fair notice at a higher court, the SEC could be completely locked out from ever doing anything enforcing in crypto. And that's a high risk. I don't think Gary Gensler is going to risk that. Government agencies don't do risk like that. So if this fair notice is allowed as a defense by Judge Torres, I believe it's Judge Torres who allows that, then Ripple, it's going to force the SEC to the settlement table. So that's just my opinion where I see this going. The fair notice is by far the biggest impact, and Jeremy Hogan has stated that. I don't believe in the bottleneck theory. I don't think that applies at all. That's something I very much disagree with. There is no real supply that's going to cut off that would increase the price. The price would increase, due to just the overwhelming impact of the settlement of the case. The bottlenecking thing, I think, has zero impact. If anything, Flair is going to show that inflation can actually increase demand and increase value. So decreasing supply doesn't always necessarily the best way to increase demand and value. And that's what will show in proof of stake. It will, but you need utilization of the asset and demand to hold the asset. And getting those two things together is not easy. And that's one thing that's really impressed me about Flare is you're able to earn yield on Spark by delegating your FTSO vote and still utilizing the asset. So you get best of both worlds. And that's one of the first assets ever that I've seen created that has utilization, storage demand, and yield all built into, and governance built into it all natively. So that's why I'm so bullish on Spark. And there's reasons here. This is not hype. These are facts that are built in to the integral parts of the way the Flare network is designed. And that's why we cover it on this channel, and we're so excited about it. And we want to share the knowledge with everyone. And the case here with the SEC does impact the whole Flare network launching. Now, 8 weeks out from the Flare network launch is going to be when the FS at minting begins. So what happens with the case does impact how people strategize towards the Flare network. And we'll be covering that in future videos. And we cover that very deeply in our Patreon group. And we try to help everyone gain the in-depth knowledge and help them with everyone. So if you are interested in learning more about the Flare network on a more one-on-one level, and with some very smart people in our Patreon Telegram group, and we do two Zoom calls every week in the Patreon. So if you're interested in preparing and setting up a strategy for yourself, not financial advice, not tax advice, not trading advice, but we are here to share all that knowledge with you beyond just the YouTube and Twitter in our Patreon group. So the link is in the description below. And I think that will wrap it up for today, Patty.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Unless
I'll
there was
just
something you
add it.
wanted to
Yeah,
say.
I'll add in just about that group. I mean, it's really just about education and what goes into making decisions, especially in DeFi when you have a lot of different opportunity costs and financial risks that can pop up. So you just want to be well informed about that. And, we're going to continue covering that stuff on this channel. As well as more in depth in that group. But other than that, I think some really exciting developments today and yesterday from Flare and the XRP ledger. So, curious to see what kind of happens as the Spark claim wraps up and we get some more information on what exactly all these Spark distributions are going to be as far as how many XRP holders claimed and then how much of that remaining Spark will be going into the general F asset rewards pool. But aside from that, I am Patty XRP and I have with me,
Mickey B. Fresh.
and we are out. See you guys.